Hi guys, this is my third video. I'm next to Philippine Embassy in Moscow, and I tentatively entitled my today video as mandatory conscription and disassociation. Let's talk about the second one. I got from your comments that again some folks misinterpret me. They try to tell that I am in favor of Putin and I'm defending Russia, etc. It's not the case, believe me. I'm not RT. I'm not a propaganda man. That's why I feel it's very important that I try to speak my heart. I try to speak what I see, because you can't accuse me of any kind of partiality here. Now, about mandatory conscription. This is very bad. To say if I expected this thing to be this bad, to be honestly, no. But it directly derives from the fact that President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, misunderstood the whole situation in Ukraine. He thought initially that he's gonna fight against this right nationalistic radical battalions, Azov and another one, Aidar. And he was under a wrong impression that the government military forces Ukraine, they are not particularly pro-Russian, maybe, but they're not nationalistic and they will be compliant. That was the case when Kherson region was taken, also the Zaporizhia, where the nuclear plant, by the way, and this is another topic for discussion, because in the 21st century the catastrophe which is going with one of the largest nuclear power plants in the world, it's unimaginable. No sober humankind could even imagine the stupidity, the naivety, the absent-mindedness, and I can get any superlatives to this, but that's impossible. That active military operations would be conducted in direct proximity to the nuclear plant, and the nuclear plant would be shelled. Just imagine that, right? Come on, Russia is not some kind of remote nebulous island. It's one of the most it used to be under USSR, a greatly developed economy with own nuclear arsenal, both military and civil, with a lot of power plants, with production of automobiles, of aircraft, of metal, steel, aluminum, just name it. I mean, what's going on is obviously an uncharted waters. Everyone just plunged in it without any counseling. My biggest rebuke to contemporary politicians that both sides, they issue decrees. Right now it's mandatory conscription, right? But they don't do their homework. They never invite professionals to make a counseling for someone to be able to deliver a situation in order to avoid catastrophic mistakes. One of those mistakes was that Putin was under impression that he needs to conquer only the radical battalions. The rest of it will be fine. It was not the case, apparently. Otherwise, the so-called special military operation would have ended in the middle of summer. Right now it's already almost end of September, and there is no end in sight when the whole war will end. So, brothers and sisters, we need to admit that we're right now facing one of the most harshest war in European history, which may gradually evolve into a full-scale, full-fledged World War III, which will be enriched by the nuke exchange. I'm gonna make a special research and make another video dedicated to how our forefathers invented the nuclear energy and how they wanted to make the nuclear arsenal in order to not allow human to conduct any wars going forward. They said that the World War III is impossible by the very fact that Russia and the United States and several other nations, they possess nuclear arsenal, and it once the nuclear arsenal cannot be used, because that would mean the end of the humankind, end of our civilization. And now, shamefully, we stand to the point when I'm here next to the Philippines embassy in Moscow, discussing with you guys the likelihood of application of nuclear arsenal. Because again, I watched President of the United States Joe Biden's performance at the General Assembly of the United Nations yesterday. Again, I see the guy, they worth each other. I mean, President Putin and President Biden. To me, that's my personal opinion. I'm not imposing it, but you must be assured on my impartiality. They come from the same propaganda environment, where it doesn't matter how convincing you are, how corroborative your statements. What matters is the tone with which you pronounce it, and your disregard to the issues that is not valuable to you. So the performance is based, okay, he said that he pretends that Putin wants to capture Ukraine and to erase Ukraine from the map. Okay, that's his statement. We know his position, that's fine. But he also knows position of President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, that the escalation is due to extension of NATO eastward. He never mentioned that fact. Why? Because it's not beneficial for him to discuss, to interact with public possibilities of why extension of NATO would be harmless and why Putin would react to that. He doesn't see any benefit. That's why his speech in General Assembly was just a self-pleasing speech. A man into politics who is very much aspired, who is trained to pronounce speeches like Winston Churchill, like that. So the same thing is when I see speeches of President Vladimir Putin. He speaks about things that worry him, and he disregards things like common opinion, the society, how it treats the war, etc. Because he is not interested to listen to anyone's opinion. And the problem, guys, with our contemporary politicians, that they hear only each other. They don't want to hear their counterparts, and especially that don't want to hear us. And that's the problem, because if a person, high-ranked person, only follows himself, that leads to a catastrophe, because no one of us, even the smartest people, are capable of assessing situations from different angles, to be able to analyze things and to take correct decisions. In order to do that, we need to invite professionals. That's something which our politicians don't want to do, because they care only about themselves. Okay, so back to what I was telling. Conscription, obviously, it's a lot of fuss, a lot of repercussion. Telegram channels are popping from information about people who are right now passing the state border, particularly in airport Sheremetyevo in Moscow. They're reporting no incidents. Nobody so far was detained because no one from those who was crossing the border happened to receive the military subscription notice. But for those folks who will, obviously they will be detained at the border. I would not allow to do that. Again, back to what was misinterpreted and why. The special military operation, by now it's apparent for maybe just for me, but hopefully for many of you as well, that due to misunderstanding of the role of the Ukrainian army, it's a full-scale war. But Ukraine is not a party to the conflict, and that will be soon understood. Ukraine is the place, it's a place of battleground, and Ukrainians need to have a rest. They need to have their loved ones back, and they need to mourn the deceased. And obviously, Putin several times repeated that the conflict is due to the extension of NATO eastwards. So the party to this conflict is not Ukraine. The party to this conflict is Brussels, is the headquarters of NATO. Well, I'd like to be wrong, and I don't want that my forecast fulfilled. But how I see the situation evolving, since we have a conscription, and there will be over 300,000 more recruitment going to the army to fight. Sooner or later, Putin will realize that the problem is with new arms which are delivered from Western Europe to help Ukraine. So that's how these trains with rockets or artillery equipment coming from Europe, essentially from Poland to Ukraine, will become the targets of Putin artillery. And sooner or later, I think it will happen, if the events will evolve like this, if nobody will come to negotiate, and I very much hope that at some point people will realize that negotiations are inevitable and they're only possible to end this war. But in the base case scenario, which unfortunately I see pretty much negative by itself, I see that nothing happens. The parties, they just stick to themselves. That rhetoric, that demagoguery, which I heard yesterday in the General Assembly, continues going on. So basically, politicians only hear themselves. They don't want to hear each other. They don't want to hear us. So those military equipment trains will become targets of Putin rockets. And trust me, guys, I see the situation pretty clear, how it revolves. Putin will make a strike on those equipment which comes from Poland to Ukraine, and then it depends on the reaction. If the NATO would not react proportionately, that would be an honor from me to NATO, because if NATO reacts proportionately and it strikes rockets to Russia, strikes back, then it's a war. It's definitely a war. And the one battleground is obviously Eastern Europe. There will be exchange of rockets, hopefully non-nuclear carrying rockets, because if it's going to be nuclear carrying rockets, it's totally another story. But I urge you to look at the map and understand why Putin was so frequently traveling to the Far East, to the Vladivostok. I have a feeling that he's preparing another battleground on the Far East. So the rockets will be targeting simultaneously the Pacific coast of the US, Alaska and stuff from Vladivostok. So there will be a dual targeting. One will be towards NATO, towards probably, well, these guys who I was talking about, the bloggers who are fleeing from Europe, from the United States, and telling, no, we're not gonna go back. They are smart enough, and they realize that sooner or later the headquarters of NATO in Brussels will become the ultimate target for the Putin's missiles. This is very insecure, and this is very dangerous, and that's why I urge you guys to spread this video, possibly to subscribe, and to to disseminate information that we are here to conduct serious conversation, to interact. I also appreciate comments underneath. I also would like to know what you think about demagogy in our politics, and the role of personality, because personalities, my opinion is that current personalities do not reflect what people want. I figured that out from my personal conversation with my mates, former mates, and just friends in Europe, in the United States. Whenever I ask them if they are angry with Russians, if they feel that the Russians are justified, that the punishment of Russians experiencing difficulties with international payment systems, with inability to buy securities. Like I am having this kind of problem with my clients, because I lost business as a financial advisor because my Russian clients no longer able to buy and sell foreign stocks, and that was my bread, so I lost it. I now lost like 80% of my income. But whenever I ask people if it's fair to punish Russians because of Putin, most of them say no, of course. So basically what they say, they don't like Russian oligarchs, nor do we, right? They don't like particularly Putin, nor do we. They don't like Biden, most of them, at least those who I speak, people, intelligent people, they say that it was a total loss, total failure. Nor do I. So when we interact with you guys, I find out that we comply in about 90% of vital statements that is crucial to the development of our world, politically, economically, socially. So I'm wondering why, what happened that our politicians cannot stand each other. So we as people, as nations, we can communicate, we can interact, we can bring this civilization, we can bring progress to this civilization. But the people who represent us, they don't follow us, so they don't represent us. They're supposed to represent our opinion, but they don't. And I think this is both a problem, a big problem, and a tragedy. Thanks for listening to this. Once again, subscribe. See you.